Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. It is Thursday night here for Above the Cushion. Got a great guest waiting in the wings. Just a couple of news and notes we need to get out to everyone. Just a reminder, no racing at either one of the tracks, Humboldt Speedway or 81 Speedway, this weekend. Taking the weekend off, trying to get some things cleaned up from a good couple straight weekends of racing. Of course, with the NOS Energy Drink World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series and then weekly championship point series kicking off last weekend. So, got a few things we need to do at both speedways before we get headed towards a very uh, fun-filled race season at Humboldt Speedway and 81 Speedway. But we will be back, of course, on April 17th. It's Spring Fling weekend. So April 17th over at Humboldt Speedway, Friday night action back, ready to go. All four of your weekly championship points classes will be in attendance, as well as Saturday night right here at 81 Speedway. Another Spring Fling weekend, of course, so double nights for Humboldt Speedway and 81 Speedway. So looking forward to getting weekly championship point series action up and going. If you were here with us last Saturday night, it was absolutely a beautiful night. Lots of great stuff going on, and we're just going to keep that momentum going through the year. Humboldt Speedway, of course, took a couple weekends off. The cancellation of the Rev Series, we're trying to get that rescheduled and back on the books. So be paying attention to the Facebook page as we get going. So just a reminder, no racing this weekend at either one of the speedways. But 17th and 18th, Humboldt Speedway, 81 Speedway. And then on April 19th, our friends over here on the property, Little 81 Speedway Kart Park, will kick off their season as well for the go-kart crowd. So we invite you out on Sunday as well. So 3 full nights or 3 full days of racing, Friday night, Saturday night, and of course Sunday afternoon. Come and take it all in, and of course support the kids over at the go-kart track for everything they're trying to do and get going as well. We're going to go ahead, waste no time, kick our man Rick Beebe up on the line. Sir, how are we doing on this wonderful afternoon?
I'm doing great, Andy. I appreciate you guys having on the show. I definitely honored to be on there, and I think the name of your show, Above the Cushion, that might describe me once in a while. And on the mistakes I make on that particular racetrack and others as well.
Well,
But looking forward to a really fun season of racing. Actually,
I know you had
been
a little bit
fortunate
of
enough to
thing
do
with your
quite a bit of
leg there.
racing with Tyler so far this year, Tyler
Right.
Davis. So I'm going to get to do a little racing of my own next weekend along with him. So looking forward to it.
I know you had a little surgery on your leg, just taking care of a few things. Is everything healed up? You're good to go?
Yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. It's been kind of a 7-month deal with a couple surgeries over the winter just to repair some things that happened in a car accident back 20 years ago. But I'm definitely about 90% healed up, I think. So doctor gave me all clear to finally go racing again.
Well, there we go. Well, it was good to see you over at Humboldt for Whitworth Spring Classic. Of course, bringing, I believe you had Carson Keeler's car in there and picking up some stuff of your own so you can get going. So it was good to see you. Good to get back at the racetrack, I'm sure, after a long winter of doing heating and air and hanging out in the Kansas City area. It was good to see some dirt.
Yes, it was. We got to go. We're blessed enough that we got to go racing at the Wild West Shootout in January. Tyler and I and some of the guys and some of his family flew out, and we got to race for quite a few nights out in Arizona and enjoyed some nice weather, a little better than what we did the year before at when the Wild West Shootout was at Vado, and we got snowed out a couple nights. So it was good to start out in Arizona and had some good runs out there, and of course been really proud of Tyler and everything he's done with the new blackout cars, him and all the ladies and gentlemen that work so hard over there at the race shop to doing everything that they do. But Tyler's worked really hard on these new cars, probably harder than anybody in the country on really perfecting these chassis. And he's just done a superb job so far this year. I'm just really proud of him.
Yeah, you of course you're a great supporter of the blackout cars. You got one yourself, and then of course going racing with Tyler. But you had mentioned taking care of a leg injury from a car accident 20 years ago. What you've been racing for a long time. What does 26? What is the year anniversary for your racing?
Well, it's just looking forward to just another year of racing. I'm just blessed to still be healthy enough and feel like I'm in good enough shape to still go out and race and have a lot of fun. We're planning on running all the Heartland Tour races, as well as every night that we don't run those races when we don't have conflicting dates. We'll be at probably be able to race at 81 and on Saturday nights and Friday night at Humboldt and just support that whole operation. So just another year. I think it's my 51st year of racing. So I've been blessed to have a long career. I'm getting old, so I got to do as much racing as I can while I can.
Yeah. Um, kind of take us back 51 years ago. How do you get started? How does your family get started in this? Where did it all begin?
I'm kind of a grew up as a lot of racers, just a racetrack brat. My dad was involved in racing since I was born, so he never drove race cars himself, but always was a crew member, and so kind of grew up since I was born, following a traveling series and being around racing, and then started racing go karts like so many of us do when we're young. I started that at about 6 years old and did that up until I was 15. Actually, had a really good kart racing career. Had a factory ride with a big karting company in Kansas City here called Russell Karting Specialties, and we got to travel over the United States doing that on road racing and sprint racing. Most of my racing was back then was on asphalt and karts, and kind of progressed right from a kart when I was 15 right into a full blown late model. So I kind of jumped from karts right to dirt late models, and from that point on, did a lot of dirt late model racing for a number of years, and then quite a bit of pavement racing for the next part of my career, and then back to dirt again.
You know, you there's some I believe ASA racing that you did. You did some trucks. Of course, you've done some instructing. How do a lot of people that we talk to and that we see not ever really, the only asphalt racing they're doing is to get to the dirt track. No one's out there in a stock car or a craftsman truck or what I think that some of the asphalt stuff considered some of the late model stuff. But what going back and forth between the two disciplines, how difficult is that? From someone that has never done it.
Well, it was more difficult than I thought to begin with because I'd been racing dirt late models for about 18 years when I started my pavement career, and we were fairly successful in the dirt late model world back then. And when I first went pavement racing, I think probably like a lot of dirt racers have the mentality that it's easy, and it's definitely not easy. It's a complete different aspect of racing, and the way you drive the cars is completely different. And it got my attention real quick. The first testing we went and did in a super late model, and this was back in like 1989, I think, so a long time ago. But the first time I went and tested, I ended up crashing the car, and it was because I was trying to drive it like a dirt car and overcorrected a little bit. And the thing about dirt racing, you can make some mistakes and you'll lose some positions maybe, but if you make mistakes on pavement, things happen real quick and usually end up junking a race car. So it's not definitely not any harder than dirt racing. Just a different kind of a different discipline. It's just have to get used to it. But I enjoyed both of them. I'd have to say I probably enjoy the dirt racing maybe a little bit more, a little more technical, especially in today's world, as fast as everybody is and as much traction as these cars have. They're very difficult to drive. I think that anyone that's never driven one, it's a lot harder than it looks.
I know at some time you did some driver coaching stuff. Talk about that.
Well, basically, what I raced the ASA series from basically it's had some not full time rides, but I started that series in 1993 and raced it part time in 93 and 94. And then 95 was my first full year to get to race in that series. And that was my rookie year, and we were able to win the Rookie of the Year title, which was a big deal back then because it paid $50,000 to win. So it was crazy because ASA's Rookie of the Year paid more than the NASCAR Cup rookie paid. I think the Cup Rookie of the Year paid 20 grand to win, and ASA paid 50. So we were able to win that Rookie of the Year deal in '95, and then I raced ASA clear up until they ended the series in 2003. At the end of 2003, and the last 7 years of my career in that series, I was the rookie instructor, which I didn't really teach anybody anything. It's just that, and kind of NASCAR has the same type format in that you have a drivers meeting for all the drivers there to race, and then you have a rookie drivers meeting too. And so I just kind of worked with a lot of the younger guys and was able to do that for a period of 7 years, which was really cool. It was a cool part of my career because I got to work with and be friends with a lot of the guys that became pretty prominent in Cup, like guys like Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth. I could kind of go on and on. A lot of really good drivers that I got to work with in kind of the earlier stages of their career, and still good friends with Jimmy and Kyle to this day. So made some good relationships there that we had a lot of fun and made a lot of memories.
Yeah, you know, I've been to a few of the ASA races. Heartland Park, Topeka. Um, we'd go watch the road course stuff up there. But you've seen a lot of racetracks in your time. Running around with the ASA thing, of course, you get some people that would pop in, like you mentioned, from the Cup world that would kind of go down and race, and just to get some either exposure for their for their sponsors, or just to kind of stay vital in the seat or whatever. But what's one of your favorite tracks when you were running the ASA series?
Well, I'd have to say probably my favorite track is with a lot of people. Was my home track, which was I-70 Speedway here in Odessa, which back then was pavement. Not it kind of flip flopped between dirt and pavement, and then went out of business for a number of years, and now it's back in business as a dirt track again. But it was my home track, kind of where I cut my teeth on pavement racing. But we got to run such a wide variety of tracks. I mean, a lot of really historic tracks over in the east, and ran everything from, we ran a few quarter-mile racetracks, and then mostly half miles. But then we raced at Dover as well on a really fast mile track, and we even raced at Michigan once on a super speedway, and a lot of different mile and a quarter tracks like St. Louis Gateway, and just got to go to a huge variety of really famous racetracks. It was a really neat time, and it was a neat series because it was actually the only live televised. Was we didn't have streaming back then, obviously, so ASA was unique in that it was, other than NASCAR, it was really the only live televised short track racing that you could actually turn the TV on, just watch it on network TV. So it gained a lot of notoriety, and a lot of really, really big name drivers that I got to race with, either from that were my heroes when I was a kid, the era I raced in. A lot of the guys that I kind of grew up being my heroes, I got to race against them, and then also against a lot of these younger talented drivers that went on to be superstars in the Cup. So it was a pretty neat deal back then.
When you're racing that, you said you raced it to the end. Was there some opportunity to go NASCAR racing, and or did you turn it down, or was it not there? Kind of, why, you know what made you stay in the ASA?
Well, I had the opportunities. I actually drove a couple different trucks in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, which now it's back to NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series again, but it's kind of gone full circle. But ran quite a few truck races for a couple different teams, and then I got to race what's now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, I guess. It was Xfinity back then. It was called the Busch Series, and ran some of those races, and I had a really good ride there. We didn't have the funding to run the full seasons, but got to do that for a while, and it would be, I'd say it was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s that I had a chance to go cup racing with a decent team. But by the time I was ready, that I had that opportunity, I was 37 years old and owned a heating and air company. And I also knew, just being honest, my talent level racing against the guys I was racing with, I was capable of winning races at the levels I was racing at. But the guys that are really, really good in cup, and I know that there again, that stuff looks easy on TV, but those guys are super talented, and those are the best of the best. And at that age, at 37 years old, I didn't want to give up my career and move to North Carolina and start up in the Cup Series, because I just knew I was beyond my prime at that time, and that's a tough world. So I decided I better just stick to doing what I knew how to do in the HVAC industry, which been really good business for me. So yes, I had the opportunity, but I've had the opportunity to drive a lot of good cars, which I've been very blessed to do.
Talking about the heating and air, of course, Rick Beebe heating and air, kind of prevalent in the Kansas City metro areas, kind of where you guys are located, I believe. That's where the hub is. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you know, I'm always curious how people get into the trades that they're in. How does the HVAC company or the work? How does that come about?
Well, the way it came for me was my dad owned a small plumbing company all through my years of growing up, and I kind of started working for him. My mom and dad really never gave me anything. I had great parents, but they never gave me anything, made me work for it. So when I wanted to race go karts and that, my dad said, "Well, we can do that," but my folks didn't have a lot of money, just blue collar people, and so for me to be able to race, I had to work for my dad from every summer from when I was about 8 years old, and kind of grew up working in the plumbing trade. But I realized that isn't what I really wanted to do for a living, so I went to Votech school for HVAC and worked for another company for a little while, and then started my first company when I was 19, and it was I owned that company for 32 years, and I sold it in 2012, mainly because I felt like we got too big and I had too many employees. We had 42 employees, and
Wow.
it kind of grew to a point where I really didn't enjoy what I was doing. So sold that company and had a 5 year no compete, and worked out pretty well for me because it took 5 years off, and just basically went USMTS modified racing full time for a 5 year period, which had a lot of fun and met a lot of really cool people doing that.
Yeah, that's a dream of a lot of racers is to run a full time national series and be able to be dedicated to it. It's very tough. Even even back then, 2012 to 2017. It's still that was. I don't remember exactly when the dirt night stuff was going on. It was had to be a little bit before that, but the series has always been really good, really tough. The best of the best competition. So that had to be some fun being able to travel up and down the roads and get that on as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I was fortunate enough to have. I couldn't have afforded to do it on my own, but luckily Jimmy Johnson helped me out a lot and contributed a lot to my race team. So I was able to do that for quite a period of time there. And USMTS was a little different back then in the fact that we were racing 80 to 90 races a year. So it was really hard to do it if you didn't do it full time. It kind of had to be almost a full time job if you wanted to run every race.
Yeah, that was back when there was a lot of windshield time in the hauler going from track to track and you know you've seen a lot of that too. Just driving up and down the roads trying to get from one racetrack to the next and kind of the layout that Todd and Janet have now with staying at a track for try to do one, at least 2 nights. Sometimes it works out they can do three. What's your take on the evolution of the series right now? Of course, you're heavily involved with the Heartland Modified Tour, and Trenton and Stick and Eric are, in my opinion, doing absolutely fantastic job with that series. And um, what, from your point of view, is it better to stay at a track for a couple nights, or in the racing form, is it better to go see 80 different tracks during the year?
I think any racer would agree with me that we'd all rather stay at one track for 2 or 3 days. It's just allows you to enjoy the weekend a little more and not have to be, spending 4 or 5 hours driving between racetracks and staying up all night to get to the next track and then getting up the next morning and unloading and starting all over again. It's nice to be able to stay at the same racetrack and work on your car on that particular racetrack and not have the next night be something completely different. So I enjoy those type of races, but we don't always get to do that, and it's okay to travel a little ways too. Most of these promoters, and I know Trenton and Stick try to do it, and even Todd, when he has races at different racetracks, they try to schedule the races where they're not too awfully far apart, keep us in at least within 4 hours or so. Uh, the Heartland Tour does a great job of keeping us, if we do run different racetracks on a certain weekend, usually 2 hours apart, 2.5 hours maybe, and that makes it not too bad if you have to do that. It's a lot better than having to travel 5, 6 hours to the next racetrack when you don't get done till midnight the night before.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes just how the cookie crumbles, the night just either works out really good, or unfortunately, every time sometimes you see some yellow flags, some red flags, and then it's going to take you till midnight at some tracks. But my next question, of course, you went from go karts to late models, and then you got into the asphalt world for a while, and then you went modified racing. Never any interest in a sprint car, or kind of seems like the evolution. Sometimes people get into the NASCAR, the asphalt world, and then they go kind of sprint car racing. Did you have any interest in sprint car stuff?
Well, I think like any other young racer, when I was young, I did have interest in a sprint car, but my parents weren't really big on me driving a sprint car, and maybe it's a good thing that I didn't take that take that avenue. I'm obviously at my age way too old to be driving a sprint car, and just those race cars are dangerous and super fast, and something that I certainly enjoy. I did get to have the opportunity to drive a midget for Brian Clausen back in, I think it was 2009, for him and his dad Tim and Big Al, their crew chief, and that was a great experience. I enjoyed getting to do that. That was a fun opportunity, but also made me realize how hard midgets are to drive at the level that those guys drive them at. And it's a lot of fun. There, any kind of race car is fun to drive. I've always enjoyed all aspects of racing, and just never really went the open wheel route, and never really, when I was racing late models, I had never really considered racing modifieds. But with the evolution of what modifieds have become now, I mean, I'd say that the modifieds we're racing now are they're probably faster now than what a lot of the dirt late models I was driving back in the 80s were on dirt. So they've come a long way, and that's especially at my age, that's about the top of the line of anything I would be able to compete in.
When you're racing the late models, what series are you following, or is there a weekly deal with late models? Around your home track. What were you kind of doing back then?
Well, back then, regionally, we raced a lot of NCRA races, which were, out around you guys area. We raced at 81. We raced at Hutch, obviously at the fairgrounds. We also raced at a place called Fun Valley that I think no longer exists. And then we raced in Oklahoma, Enid, Oklahoma City, places like that. But then when we went to national tour races, the biggest late model tour back then throughout the United States was a series called NDRA,
Mhm.
and it was predominantly big in the South. They did have a couple of NDRA races at I-70 when it was dirt. So those were kind of the best guys in the country that ran that series. And we ran a limited schedule with those type of series. We didn't really have the budget that we needed at that time to race too often with that series. But we kind of raced all over the place and got to enjoy a lot of different racetracks. And some of them which still exist and I'm still getting to go back to.
Yet, kind of like you said, looking at how everything's progressed, right? The modifieds were just kind of a, whatever um, car you could, whatever Chevelle you could salvage and cut the rear clip off and put a few panels on it. And of course, the late models have always been kind of superior, but everything gets more superior. So looking at late models now, it's very aerodynamic. It's very engineer driven. The cars, they just do wild things underneath the body, the way that the suspension works, and from your perspective, your point of view, and how everything evolves, did you ever think that cars would get to where they're at now?
Probably not. We all think as we're racing that we're probably going as fast as we could ever go. And, I've seen modifieds come from back when I was racing late models and the IMCA modified first came about. It's kind of like what you spoke of. It was a beginner type class with a, Chevelle front clip on a just whatever type of car you fabricated with a 3 link rear suspension, more similar to, I would compare them to the sport mod division nowadays, or E mods, whatever
Mm-hmm.
they're called at different racetracks. But they had a $300 engine claim back then. So, we kind of looked at them as a beginner division and look at where they've come from, in the mid to late 80s to where they are now. The modified is basically a late model with a stock front clip on it. So they've come a long way.
Just it's always every year the modified rules haven't changed too much in the last handful of years. The body gets a little bit of body rule, and of course people try to push the limits, so then someone has to reel in something. But you know you've been involved, we mentioned at the start of the show, with the blackout team, and Tyler kind of handpicked some companies that he felt like were the best in the business out there to manufacture components, and just looking at some of the shock technology that you guys have now on um, the modified, probably is far superior to some of the stuff you even saw when you were racing the Craftsman truck.
Oh yeah, it's evolved tremendously, and you know, Tyler and I are involved with Ralphie with Penske Shocks in Idaho, and great guy does a lot for us with shock technology. And I've talked to an awful lot of people. Actually, I was talking to Trenton Berry today, and he and I were just talking about Tyler and the blackout race cars. And I've had about every brand of modified on the market and worked with everybody that builds them through my career. And there's no one in the country that works harder at trying to make his cars better than Tyler does. He never stops, which is necessary nowadays because everyone continually gets faster, even through the year. As far as uh, making more traction, and in order to do that, it's technology, and they're very hard to understand if you don't really work with them a lot. And nobody's worked harder than Tyler at trying to make his cars as good as possible, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And just really proud of all the hard work that he's put into making these cars where they are now compared to when I had my first MK1 car back in 2023. They've come a long way since then.
Yeah. Speaking of Trenton and the Heartland series, again, you're very involved with them, and a great supporter. as well as a supporter with us at Humboldt and 81 Speedway. And you know, when the Heartland Series kind of first came out, everyone was a little skeptical. They weren't sure it was gonna be a good thing. Were these people that some that people kind of knew, from the race and dirt stuff, but would they be good promoters? Would they be, how would they run the series? How would it go? Um, I believe we're year 3 in, from a supporter's standpoint and what they've done with the Heartland series. How are you feeling about it?
Well, it's pretty amazing. Trent and I were talked for about an hour today. He was driving on his way to Mississippi, obviously, and just had some time to chat. So he gave me a call, and we got into just discussing from where it started to where it's at now. It kind of was a deal that a lot of people had talked about, but Trent and I and Eric and Stick, before the first race ever happened, we were trying to figure out a way to put this thing together, and they were a little skeptical, obviously, with investing what they had to do it, taking a big step, whether we would have the following that we needed. And I kind of assured Trenton, just because I know a lot of racers that were looking for something like that, especially with modified racing kind of dwindling away at a lot of weekly tracks. Luckily, 81 has supported them, and Humboldt has as well. But it's kind of gotten to where a lot of the weekly tracks had dropped A mods, and there was a big need for a regional series like that. And I told them from the beginning, I said, you're not going to have a problem getting cars. I said, there's going to be plenty of race cars. And I know the first year of that series, I think the first few races, we had 50 plus race cars. And it was pretty amazing. Had a lot of USMTS cars on off weekends that were basically what the races became. They became USMTS races whenever there wasn't a conflicting date. And I think that Trent and Eric were a little overwhelmed at the beginning at how many cars we had. They almost felt like they had too many cars when we were, drawing between 50 and 60 race cars. At night they had no idea that it would be that successful. And it's really done well since then, and I think it'll just continue to grow.
This year, of course, the team is going to embark into the late model world. You've been entrenched in that, and Trenton as well has been involved in late models. So, going to go Power Eye sanctioning for the Heartland late model tour. Unfortunately, we don't run any Power Eye stuff at either Humboldt or 81, so not going to get a in-person look at some of that. But I'm hopeful that I can make it over to Missouri to watch some shows. How are you, kind of feeling about getting the late model regional thing started up again?
Oh, I think it's a really cool deal. I think it's going to be a challenge because it's fairly competitive. There are a lot of regional late model tours out there right now, especially with MLRA coming back now, and and several other regional late model series. There's some competition for cars. I think they're smart enough probably to plan their dates to where they're not competing against other regional series, and I think they'll do well at it. I'm anxious to see how it works out. If I were to win the lottery or something, I'd love to own a late model for Tyler to drive. But Tyler and I've, kind of talked about that jokingly. That's a little out of our league as far as our income. That's a little more expensive sport than I want to get into. But I definitely love late models. My favorite form of racing on the planet. But love to do it if I was a Lance Landers type guy that was a billionaire, but a little out of my league. So I think we need to stay in our lane and stay with the modified deal. But I'm certainly excited about seeing how that works for them. I'm hoping it has great success.
You're a race fan as well as a racer. Is late models, if you just got to go watch, is late models what you're gonna pick to go sit in the stands or sit in the pit grandstands and watch?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, obviously, I love modified racing. I love to watch modified racing when I'm not racing. Obviously, I'll be watching the USMTS races on Race and Dirt tomorrow night and Saturday night, and but I also watch most all the World of Outlaws and Lucas Oil late model races when we're not racing, and I'd love to be able to travel and watch some of those races when they're fairly nearby. It's just that during the summer when we're racing and with my work schedule, it's kind of hard to travel to watch them. But with streaming nowadays, you can watch a lot of good coverage of just about every big late model race there is. So, we got the Illini 100 this weekend, which is a big race, and that'll be fun to watch as well.
Yeah. Kind of something that's in the last, I'd say, here at 81, especially probably the last 5 years, stock cars have been on a major tear. Todd brings back the Iron Man stock car series for the USRA World. Um, those cars, if you've been watching any, for everyone out there, those cars are almost getting as technical and as engineering kind of driven as some of the modified stuff. It's the way that the attitude in the car is, and pulling the left front, and the way that the rear end still kind of crawls up under there. What's been your take on the evolution of the stock car over the last couple years?
Well, I think I'm like any other fan, race fan. The stock car racing has become phenomenal. It's good times. It's one of the best races, if not the best race of the night. Those cars just seem to really be able to race in tight packs and race close together, and they're evenly matched. And a lot of good drivers in the stock cars now, regardless of what series or what type of stock cars they are. We've got a lot of really good modified drivers, including Kelly Shryock and Jason Hughes and guys like that are in stock cars now. And that's just to name a couple. There's
Right.
a lot of very talented stock car drivers, and we're also having some really big paying stock car races that are paying 50,000 to win, and that. So with that, the equipment evolves, becomes more expensive, unfortunately, but also puts on a better show for the fans. And so, yeah, stock car racing's at an all-time high right now, in my opinion.
You mentioned a couple times you're not a spring chicken anymore. Up, you're climbing the ladder in age. But what is the rest of your racing career look like? You've had, I believe you said 51 phenomenal years, starting on 50 the 51st, so 50 years of phenomenal racing. Um, how much longer? I know you've got remarried in the last 6 years or so. What's the wife say? What's the business say? What's kind of the 5 year plan?
Well, I love racing, and especially with I got a lot of renewed interest in just in racing in general. When Tyler and I, kind of started the deal that we're doing, and obviously the had his race cars for the last 4 or 5 years now, and had a young man from Kansas City drove for me back in 2024 with Gunnar Martin, which Gunnar did a great job. And but Gunner's got a family and a business, and he's extremely busy, so hard for him to travel. And I've really enjoyed racing with Tyler and just the whole group in Wichita. I kind of feel like my racing family in general is in Wichita nowadays, a lot more so than Kansas City. And with J.R. Sartain and everything he's done for the sport, and Johnny Allen working as hard as he does, just really great group of people. And I would consider, Tyler's one of my best friends. And, I'm only going to be able to do this another year or two probably. And I guess I'll race till I feel like I don't want to anymore. But after that, I don't have any plans to stop my racing operation. I want to continue to, be a part of Tyler's operation, and just go racing with him whenever I do in my career. So don't have any plans on ending it anytime soon. I'm still in good health and enjoy driving down the road, and just enjoy all the people, and more so than the racing. I think obviously racing is a big thing. It's an addiction. It's adrenaline. We're all adrenaline junkies that do it, and even at my age, I still really enjoy driving race cars, but I also enjoy working on them and just being at the racetrack because all my best friends and what I would consider almost family are, all racers, be it pavement or dirt, throughout the United States. So it's kind of my life and has been since I was a kid. So I don't have any intentions of stopping it anytime soon. Just hopefully my as long as my health's good and when I can get away from work, I'll be at the racetrack.
Yes. Speaking of, Rick Beebe, heating and air. What's is there something you guys specialize in, or are you just kind of a heating and air company takes care of residential, commercial? Talk about your business a little bit.
Well, we basically do about everything. I'm lucky to have a lot of, or not a lot, a small number of employees, but they're all really good, very talented employees that are dedicated to our company. And we do, I'd say we're probably 60% residential and 40% commercial. So lucky to have a lot of large auto dealerships here in Kansas City that we do commercial work for them, as well as property management companies that we maintain a lot of big buildings and commercial equipment. But we also do a lot of residential service and replacement. So we're fairly diversified and one of the few privately owned companies left in Kansas City. And we have our own sheet metal shop, so we're able to fabricate any kind of custom ductwork that we need to. So there aren't too many jobs that we're not capable of doing. So just really blessed to have a lot of great employees and great customers. I mean, I've got a 45-year customer base, so it's that's kind of been my life aside of racing.
Yeah. Um, this year over at Humboldt, there was a big push to bring the A mods back. We really tried to keep that going. The car count just wasn't there, and there was some locals around that have stepped out of the B mods into the A mods, and then of course, we had to kind of put the smosh on the A mod stuff over there. But this year we're going to bring them back with the help of a few great partners. Of course, yourself and the heating and air company. One of those, um, you know, John Allen. You talked about him, and of course, we love him here as the general manager for both of the speedways. But he called you and asked you if you'd help, and of true Rick Beebe fashion, absolutely no hesitation, jumped right on board. Kind of talk about that decision to help us out over at Humboldt.
Well, when I can be blessed enough to be able to help any racing series, and especially something that Jr. and Johnny are involved in, and I know how hard they work and how much they care about not only the racers but the fans as well. And Jr. being just an incredible promoter that he is, and I love working with those guys because they love to try to bring in new fans and bring kids into the sport. And that's just something that means a lot to me. I love seeing families come to the racetrack and kids come down and, just the events that JR has for kids and whether it be autograph signings or whatever they come up with for them to do. It's a lot of fun to be a part of. And I'm also kind of part of helping out Mike Striegel with his Outlaw Kids Tour. And just it's a neat thing for me to see young younger people want to get involved in racing. So that's the future of our sport. So that's what we need to be promoting.
Yeah, yeah. We this past Saturday, maybe we didn't do a good job at kind of talking about it, but um, you know having cars on the speedway and getting the fans down on the front stretch and meeting drivers is something we've done a couple times, and trying to keep the racing to a so not everyone's at the racetrack till midnight or 1 o'clock. We've tried to kind of get the shows done in a timely manner, and but this year, it's really heavily focused getting cars to the front stretch. And like I said, maybe we just didn't do a good job, or I didn't do a good job about talking about it enough. But we only had a handful of cars to get the people down, to get the fans down on the front stretch and meet the drivers, get some autographs. And of course we had a Easter weekend, so we had a little Easter egg hunt down there. But it was I'm all about getting the younger generation involved. Of course, my son is going to race go karts this year, so we're going to get him kind of started and see if he takes off on it, or if we just spend a bunch of time and money and then we got to turn around and sell it. Well, I guess next weekend we'll tell the story, but you're right. Getting the younger generation involved, getting the kids excited to be at the racetrack, talking to you drivers, getting some autographs, and of course, when we don't do redraw stuff here at the Speedway anymore, but when we autograph sessions, and that's always a fun event to get people down to see what's going on, get up and close to you guys, see your fire suits and all the you know you guys spend a lot of time with designs for fire suits and of course the graphics, so get you down there and meet you and see your cool fire suits, see the cool cars, and get an autograph. It's always a great opportunity. And we from us here at FOE Enterprises, myself included, being over at Humboldt every Friday, want to thank you for being involved with the A mods and bringing them back. And I'm looking forward to having you there and racing, and then of course all the locals and the traveling. Hopefully they all we get a pretty packed shows on the limited nights that we are going to run the A mods.
Well, I think the fans in the area of Wichita, Humboldt, and that area are blessed because there are a lot of really good modified drivers and teams locally there. And I don't know if there's a bigger weekly modified show anywhere other than at 81 Speedway. And always ends up being a great show for the fans, along with all the other classes as well. But and you talked about the go karts. It's what Tyler and Emily have done, and all the work they've put into the little 81 Speedway, and talking about them, racing this Sunday. That's going to be a really cool deal, and I know how much effort they put into it, because there's a lot of nights we'll race on a Saturday night and might be 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, maybe even 7 or 8 hours from home for Emily and Tyler, and they got to jump in the hauler after racing all night and drive home and be there to put on that kart show on Sunday. So really a cool deal for all the, not just younger people, but there are a lot of adults that race karts too. And kart racing is a great sport for someone to get involved in motorsports, and you guys are lucky to have that there in Wichita. I wish we had one in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's it was kind of the go kart thing was kind of dying off, and then some people, Alex Cammon and his family, and then Johnny and Alex Cammon and Jeremy Campbell and Troy Keeler, and some of them kind of started some backyard karting stuff, and kind of turned into a big deal. And then of course they build the facility here, and it's really got some kids involved and some kids racing. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of the go kart track. Unfortunately I wasn't able to make it out as much as I wanted to the first couple years, but since we're real heavily involved this year, I'll be there every weekend supporting. So I'm excited for the go kart, and of course the kids are excited, and it's always good to see their smiling faces, and they're ready to go. And then a lot of times they're talking about what happened Friday or Saturday night at the races, which we just need to keep the buzz going about racing, as things are gonna they're costing a little bit more. Fuel is costing a little bit more to get to the racetrack, and of course insurance and food prices and everything just keeps going up. So we try to keep as much buzz around the speedways as we absolutely can.
Well, one amazing thing about racing is that all of us as racers, it doesn't matter whether we're racing modifieds, late model sprint cars, go karts, whatever it may be. I think all of us that are dedicated to our sport, not sure we're too smart about how we spend our money, but it is a great way to have fun and enjoy relationships with people. And I suppose we'd still be racing if diesel was $7 a gallon. We're not real smart that way, but it's amazing how many race cars you'll see in the pits at a big race, especially, for example, when we were at Lucas here a couple weekends ago. Completely full pit area for the King of America race there, and it doesn't seem to matter what the cost of racing is or the cost of haulers and race cars and parts and fuel, tires and diesel fuel to get there. It just seems to continue to keep growing. So it's amazing how it works, but I'm very grateful that it does.
Well, you mentioned King of America, and you also mentioned, kind of how strong the modified um, racing scene is around Wichita. Of course, Gabe Hodges, Reese Solander pick up night one and night two, and then Tanner Mullins is crowned the king. Of course, a couple track champions here at 81 in the Hodges Farm and Dredging team, and then just about 10 minutes away from the Speedway, Tanner Mullins. So those three put on an absolute great night of racing, 3 great nights of racing, and they're all kind of local. We consider them local here to the Speedway. So that just if that goes to show you how strong it is around Wichita. I don't know how else we could convince you.
Yeah, the Hodges team's done very well. I'm really proud of both those boys, and thankful that Jeff Hodges is willing to invest in those young men, and they're nice young men. They're doing a great job of racing, and of course Tanner Mullins and all of his group and all the chassis they built, they've done a fantastic job. And Tanner being one of the best modified drivers in the country as well, have great respect for him as well. And it left the King of America driving home kind of thinking that the Kansas boys, including Tyler Davis, kind of put a whooping on everybody. So, I was pretty proud of Tyler in his first 2 weeks of racing. He came away with leading the Heartland Modified Tour points, and he left Lucas with being fourth in the National Tour points. He had 3 out of the top 4 guys in points in USMTS right now are Kansas drivers. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's Kansas is doing an absolutely fantastic job, and put our Kansas racers up against any state, any other track. Here at 81, we held for the USRA World, we held the highest percentage car count for a couple years in a row, and then it kind of fell off. I think someone else got us for the last couple years, but said it for a couple years. Of course, when Tyler was winning the USRA national championships, if you wanted to have a shot in the top 5 of any of that, you needed to come to Wichita and race with the best. And I still feel like that reigns true. I feel like that reigns true over at Humboldt as well. Of course, with Peyton Phillips, Chase Sig over there. You're just right down the road. We have 2 great tracks with 2 absolutely great fields of modifieds that'll show up on Friday and Saturday night and put them up against the best of the best.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you can go to a weekly show at either one of those racetracks, and the fans that aren't able to travel are able to see national champion caliber drivers racing against each other. And I think it's about as hard to win a weekly show at Humboldt or 81 Speedway as it is anywhere in the country. So the only tracks that I would say maybe would even compare would be up north when you go to Fountain City, basically Mississippi Thunder, or over to Deer Creek. And I think those are probably the top 3 competitive modified weekly shows in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Of course, know the Tims at Mississippi Thunder very well, and met them through some work stuff, and been friends with them for quite some time. They have a absolutely fantastic facility and a great group of racers that are about 45 minutes each direction from the track. So yeah, I would agree that there's just a handful of great modified tracks out there in the country. If you want to see the best of the best, it's easy to pick them out. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly nice for a local fan to be able to drive 15, 20, 30 minutes and be able to go see that quality of the show.
That's right.
And it's kind of a shame. Lakeside, I feel, is a premier facility here in Kansas City, and they had to stop racing the A mods there because they just weren't getting enough cars. But kind of same thing Mike Johnson struggles with at I-35, just not getting enough A mods. Mike continues to support the class and run them there, but unfortunately don't get all that many cars. So it's just a blessing that 81 is able to get the cars they do, and I'm hoping that Humboldt can kind of follow up with that. I know it's a little harder for working guys to race on Friday night, but they've always made it late start time over there and usually get done fairly early. So I think Humboldt's a great weekly show for people to go watch. I just hoping that they can get the support they need to keep that thing going as far as the modified division.
Yeah, we're hopeful to bring them over there. Love having the A mods over there, and again, want to thank you for your support in that, and we'll get the information out for when we're gonna again reschedule the Rev series to be over there for the late models, and I believe that was a mistake to have the A. That was a scheduling mistake to have the A mods on the same night, so they won't be there. But here in the next couple of weeks, we'll have them over there, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm hoping that some of the I know that we've tried to schedule it around in some holes of that for Heartland and USMTS. Hoping that we can get some of those racers to come over there and race with us on the weekly series as well. So hoping that's a success this year for sure.
And you got some really good regional late model racers now. I mean, with guys that have racing modifieds as well, guys like Tyler Wolf that has been doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
of course the MLRA's got a lot of good drivers in it as well, and you got guys like Tony Jackson and even Billy Moyer Sr. running those regional series. They usually put on a pretty darn good show.
Yeah, hoping the Rev series when we get them rescheduled. I know we're trying to look for a weekend that's kind of got a hole for some of the other traveling stuff and try to get a big draw. So we're hoping maybe we can pull some of those big names in there and have some fun over at the Bull Ring. Well, we're about an hour into this, and I know you've had a long day of working and making sure everyone's HVAC is up and going, and we're headed towards the weekend. So I don't want to keep you all night long. I, of course, want to thank you for joining me here on the show. I appreciate your support of Humboldt and 81 Speedway. It's always good to see you. Always good to talk to you at the racetrack and find out what you got going on. And of course, it's always good to be on the call when you're out on track as well. Um, been doing this a real long time. Of course, I've kind of remember some of it from my childhood, but you were kind of doing more of the asphalt stuff when I was coming up in the world. But again, we want to thank you for advocating for the sports, the dirt and the asphalt side, and as well as the go kart stuff, and supporting racers. Your name's on quite a few cars, and your name is of course always at the best races, and you just try to do everything you can for everyone and spread it as much as you can on a blue collar working budget that you have. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate you tuning in with us and supporting us and coming on the show tonight and kind of telling some of your story. I know there's a lot that we can keep going, but want to of course get you on again, talk a little more about the asphalt stuff later on, and we really appreciate you.
Thanks. I appreciate you, Andy, and we appreciate the Above the Cushion show and everything that my Wichita family does for motorsports. It's kind of become a second home for me over there. So I really enjoy coming over and being a part of everything that happens in that area. And we're blessed to have all of you to keep our sport going at the rate that it is. So thank you for having me on. As I'm honored to be able to be on the show.
Well, we appreciate it very much. Hopefully, we will see you uh, on April 18th here at the Speedway as we'll run the USRA modified for the alternative pest management, and hoping you have safe travels and work goes good, and we can see you on Saturday night, buddy.
I'd love to be there, except for I think Tyler and I'll be at I-35 at the Heartland Modified Tour race that night. That's our next touring series is at Moberly, Missouri on the 17th, and I think we're racing on Saturday night, the 18th at I-35. So that will probably be one of the few nights we won't be able to be there.
Well, that'll be a bummer, but we'll, of course, we'll catch you at some event here at the Speedway, and hopefully we can get you on an off night from the traveling, and you can get down here and get your own car out and turn some laps here in Wichita.
So I'm looking forward to it. We'll definitely be at 81 every chance we can possibly be there, and Humboldt as well.
All right, buddy. Well, I really appreciate it again. Thanks for calling in and spending some time with us, and you have an absolutely fantastic night.
Thank you, Andy. We'll see you soon. You
All right,
take care.
you too. All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Well, good conversation there with Rick Beebe. We just barely touched on anything that he's done in his career. Of course, 51 years going strong in racing for Rick Beebe and Rick Beebe Heating and Air. Again, we need to thank Rick Beebe Heating and Air. We need to thank Jared Gilmore and Phillips, and of course Sig's Tire and Auto for being the premier sponsors of USRA Modified action over at Humboldt Speedway. Be paying attention to the Facebook page when we get that fired up. And again, want to remind everyone that's kind of tuning in late to this. No racing this weekend here at the Speedway. We have the weekend off, trying to get some stuff finished up at the Speedway, some cleaning stuff done, testing some microphone equipment. We had a little bit of issues Saturday night here at 81 with some of the wireless mics, so the crew's been testing that and trying to figure everything out. But we will be back at Humboldt Speedway on April 17th for Spring Fling. Pit gate's going to open at 5, grandstand at 6 o'clock, hot laps will start at 7:30, and of course racing at 8 o'clock. Prices can be found on HumboldtSpeedway.com. Event classes going to be your Rays Metal Depot USRA B mods, your Extrusion Zinc Midwest mods, your mini stock and tuner, and then of course your Home Savings Bank Pure Stock division will run. So your 4 weekly championship points classes will kick off officially on April 17th. And then, of course, Saturday, April 18th, Spring Fling again. So Spring Fling weekend next weekend at both speedways. Pit gate's going to open at 3, grandstand at 5. Drivers must be checked in by 5:30, hot lap 6:15. Racing, of course, 7 o'clock, kind of the standard times that we have here at the Speedway. Alternative Pest Management USRA Modified, your Poorman Auto Supply USRA B mods, TM Fencing LLC Super Stocks, your Treasure Hunt Estate Sales Mini Stock and Tuner, and your Allied Battery Stock Cars. So all 5 of your weekly championship points classes are in attendance once again for night number 2 of weekly championship action. So looking forward to that. It was absolutely fantastic weekend last weekend here at the Speedway as we got everything kicked off. And we appreciate everyone for being in the stands with us, and I want to thank everyone for participating in the Easter egg hunt as well. Tina Flotting, we want to thank you for bringing out some Easter eggs for the kids, and of course Diva Dog for organizing all that. Emily Davis got all that handled and situated, and we appreciate Tina Flotting for getting some eggs out there, and of course we appreciate Emily Davis for getting that organized for the young junior racers. So we're looking forward to some more fan interaction stuff throughout the year, getting some cars out on the front stretch and getting some autograph sessions. So shout out to you drivers. I'm gonna take the hit for last weekend. Maybe I didn't do enough explaining to get your car out there at intermission time to be part of the fan interaction, but I'll be a little bit better about that and get you guys more involved because the fans were really wanting to see you guys out there. So let the drivers know more once we have fan interaction stuff. Same goes with Humboldt. We're going to do some more of that this year as well. So Humboldt and 81, a little more fan interaction on the front stretch and get everyone down there, meet the drivers, get some autographs, and of course we have a huge fan appreciation night at Humboldt Speedway. It's one to mark on the calendar, and it'll be coming up here in the next couple months. So we want to get that tradition going over here at 81 Speedway. A little bit more fan stuff happening here in Park City. So that is going to do it for me here tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, I want to apologize for last week not doing the show. I had a guest lined up, and then the Rev Series canceled, and then I went to the dentist, and they just absolutely beat me up. I was hurting for a couple days, so I want to apologize for no show last week. Rick Beebe was on tonight. If you're just joining us, I see the viewership's growing a couple. Go back and listen. Of course, they're going to put this video up on YouTube as well. Get over to the YouTube page, see what's going on over there. All of the pit stop videos have been uploaded. I don't have any more in the queue, so I need to get some driver interviews going. So if you're interested in being on the pit stop, please let me know, and I'll come over to your pit. And takes about 5 minutes, real quick. 15 questions. There is some new questions this year, so we kept some of the good ones, and we traded some of the bad ones out for new ones, and I've been working on that. I want to thank Jennifer McGeehee. She's been helping me with getting some of the questions lined out, and trying to come up with some new ideas. So I appreciate her very much for helping me with that. So that is going to do it for me here, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, no racing this weekend. Enjoy the last weekend before we get going, because it is going to be hectic once we start on April 17th. So check the YouTube page. Rick Beebe's interview will get posted here in the next couple days. And again, thank you very much for being a loyal supporter of with us here for Above the Cushion Humboldt Speedway 81 Speedway. It's going to be next weekend we're going to kick it off. Again, thank you guys. I really appreciate everything you do for us, all the likes and shares on Facebook, the fan engagement that's been going on as I've been down in the infield the last couple weeks and posting stuff. Hope you're enjoying the content that we're getting out, and again, just thank you for being a race fan. But that is going to do it for me. Good night. God bless. We'll see you at the races.